Hey, how's it going? In one of my previous videos, I transformed a Squier P bass into something that got a sound as close as possible to a vintage pre-Ernie Ball Music Man Stingray. And in summary, it mainly involved replacing the pickup with a Music Man Stingray style pickup that matched the original specs as closely as possible, in my case a Nordstrand MM 4.2, and making sure to mount it in the exact same position along the string length. Plus, then recreating the exact onboard preamp of a Stingray bass. Feel free to check out that video if you'd like details about that. But one of the things I mentioned in that video is that if you're interested in combining the sounds of both a Fender Precision style bass and a Music Man Stingray style bass, the ideal thing is that the pickups don't overlap. What this means is that if you want to make a bass that can nail both sounds, you can get the pickups in the exact right positions on one bass. And if you've seen some of my other earlier videos, you're probably aware that the position of the pickup along the total length of the strings is a huge part of the fundamental sound of any electric guitar or bass. Now, I am definitely not the first person to think of this, but even though I've seen other people make the same combination, what I haven't seen yet are the sounds you can get by putting the coils in the Music Man pickup into every possible combination, meaning not only both coils in parallel as a humbucker, which is the standard sound of a Stingray bass, but also both coils in series, which is the standard sound of a Music Man Sterling bass, for example, the bridge coil by itself in a pseudo single coil split coil setting, and then finally the neck coil by itself. So I added switching to be able to go through all four of those combinations via this Strat style knife switch, then added the original stock P pickup back in, and made the controls basically like a Fender jazz bass, meaning any amount of either the P and Music Man pickups can be dialed in for the sound of both pickups in parallel. And I thought I'd make this video to share all of those sounds with you in case maybe you were interested in doing the same thing to your bass, or just curious. I'll tell you, I was actually pretty surprised by how different the sound of the split coil settings on the Music Man pickup are versus the sounds of the humbucking settings. But let's get straight to the sound samples. You already heard the pick sounds in the video's intro, and now we'll go through fingerstyle and slap to give a range of playing styles. But real quick, one added feature that I included for the rest of the samples. I put in a push-pull pot that completely bypasses all of the onboard controls. And I did that because in a previous video, I showed two pedals I made that exactly recreate the standard onboard preamps of the Stingray bass. One is the 2-band version from the Stingray's earlier years, and the other is the 3-band version that replaced it as the standard around the late 80s. So by bypassing the onboard controls and using these pedal versions of the preamps instead, we can match the true sound of the Stingray bass. So in the following samples, I included settings with the preamp on for all four of the Music Man pickup settings, so you could get an idea of what a Stingray bass would sound like if you were maybe interested in adding a series parallel switch to your bass, and or a coil split switch. Alright, let's check it out. Alright, so let me get this out of the way. Here on the screen is a hand-drawn schematic of the full circuit of this bass, in case you're interested in doing anything similar to this type of wiring. I know this probably isn't standard notation, so apologies for that, but hopefully it's clear enough if you're familiar with onboard circuiting. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that one thing I thought was interesting was that this Nordstrand MM 4.2 pickup definitely has a higher output than the stock P pickup of this bass, even in the single coil settings. It's not too surprising, since you can definitely get a huge range of outputs from pretty much any pickup style, and it's possible that the MM 4.2 is simply on the higher end. Or maybe the stock P pickup of a Squier 70s classic vibe P bass is slightly on the lower end. Maybe it's the larger pole pieces on the Nordstrand. Who knows? But in any case, when I had both pickups on, what I had actually done was mix the MM pickup down a bit so that I was getting equal output from both pickups. I found that if I didn't do this, the MM pickup overpowered the P pickup so that the parallel setting didn't even sound much different. So something to be aware of if you're mixing pickups, having a separate volume control per pickup, or at least a pan control, can be a lifesaver, since it can be hard to tell how two different pickup types will mix together. Now, in terms of commenting on the sounds, I generally try to keep my own opinions out of these videos and let you form your own, but one thing I'll mention is that I was a bit surprised that the single coil bridge side setting of the MM pickup didn't sound very much like a jazz bass bridge pickup to me, despite being in almost the same location. And even with the P pickup added in parallel, likewise, it still didn't sound much like the PJ basses that I've played either. My best guess is that it may come down to the different construction of the pickups. For example, a jazz pickup has 2 pole pieces per string, which is generally understood to reduce the sharp transient attack of each note. In fact, it's been reported that the original 1951 Fender Precision single coil pickup with a single pole piece per string was changed by Leo Fender in 1957 to the now standard Precision split coil pickup with 2 pole pieces per string, precisely because the early amplifiers of the 50s were having a hard time handling the sharp attack without damaging the speakers, and changing to 2 off-center pole pieces solved the issue. The pole pieces are also simply larger on a Stingray style pickup, which I've anecdotally heard increases the dynamic range of the sound even further, meaning even slightly more attack. I do think they sound pretty darn bright and clangy, for lack of a better word, almost like a Rickenbacker bridge pickup. I think both pickups have Alnico 5 magnets. I couldn't find full verification of that, but either way, even if they are the same type of magnets, the different size, shape, and location within the pickup certainly may make a difference as well. Anyway, regardless of the full reasons, hope you found this interesting. And if you like some of the sounds in this video, maybe it'll give you some ideas for your next bass or modification project. Thanks for listening. Happy playing.